My name is David. I am a single father for going on a year. My daughter's mom died last year. So I am experiencing what it is to be a new single father. I've never been that before. My daughter's name is Kennedy. She's 4. She has autism. So I think I am just taking it day by day, just learning it day by day.
Yeah, well, my name is Nakia. I'm a single father. I've been a single father. My son is 13. I've had him full time since he was 8 months. And it's just been me and him rocking for a while. My son has Down syndrome. And doctor said he wouldn't do anything. They said he wouldn't walk, said he wouldn't talk, said he wouldn't read, right? They said he wouldn't do anything. And I was just like, okay, watch. Like, I'm gonna show you what love does. And so my dude is 13, and he's just a regular teenager, you know what I'm saying? He has his delays and he has his hurdles that he has to get over. But love is the greatest conduit that I've experienced with having just the privilege and pleasure of raising him. And I don't know, even understanding that every student, every child has a special need.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that a lot of times, when it comes to our children, right, with a medical diagnosis, those are kind of where the special needs community is highlighted. But when you look at children as a whole, if you don't have proper love or encouragement, emotional upbringing, you'll be emotionally handicapped. You'll be, mentally handicapped.
Right.
All of those things all kind of circle around raising a kid or a child with a special need, because they all have a special need. And if you don't get love, that's the greatest special need. You know what I'm saying? So, wow. What would you say your biggest hurdle is for you as a new single father, Black male, right, with a daughter with autism? That's a lot of different curves that you would have to navigate through. How would you say your most difficult process is during that? And then what would you say has been I guess the easiest part of it?
When her mother was alive, I was so used to working. And then after me and her mother had broke up, I just kind of compartmentalized the idea that I just had to provide for the two of them, So I worked, I lived on, separately, lived on my own. She lived on her own. And I think that at a certain point, it just put me in such a work mode, because I knew that I had to, pay my bills and then give her money for my daughter. So that just was kind of all that I did in that moment. But I wasn't as hands-on with my daughter as I needed to be in that moment. And I remember she would complain and tell me, you're working too much, and with her being delayed, she needs to actually see you and talk to you. And I would call her every day, but I wouldn't see her every day. And so when she died, all of that had to change, So now there's this full-time dad thing that I never experienced. Again, I was used to working. So if I had to work 60 hours in a week, as long as I was providing the money and the income, I think the trauma of being a Black man without a father and seeing my mother,
of course,
go through things, I just thought I need the money. There's still a level of I have to be full time now, and so now everything I do is centered around making sure that I still have time for my daughter and making sure that I'm still giving her the time that she needs. And now she's starting to, she's become very clinged on to me because of that. And I used to be scared of that because I didn't know how to, I'm a man, so I don't know how to raise a daughter. So I thought, I've raised my nieces, I've raised other people's kids, but again, me and my daughter's mom had a level and a standard, and I was very much like, you're the woman, you do her hair, you make sure she has this, I'll send you the money for the clothes and
it was
everything.
a social construct that you had.
Yeah. And so when that changed, you know, I'm learning about outfits that are appropriate and inappropriate. I'm learning about hair. I'm learning, and then also my daughter's autistic, so she's high functioning considered, but she's still working on finding her voice. As I navigate through that, she's also going through things that I don't know. There's a lot of days where I'm like looking at her and she's like randomly, because she can associate that I'm her dad, and so she'll say daddy, but then there's that part of her that says mommy.
Yeah.
And then now she's saying mommy and daddy. So it's like there's so much emotions that go through, because now I have to like keep my poker face. And you know, of course I could break down and cry and do, and I do if I have to. But there's a lot of times where I have to change that perspective, and that person who was just so used to being the breadwinner, and now I have to be emotional. And I would say my biggest strength is just having empathy in a lot of situations. I know that my daughter isn't always able to utilize her words for things, so we have a language, like we have a thing that works for us, and I think a lot of people think that it comes from like you said, if you're a hands-on parent, if you're either there or you're not, you know? And so I tell people all the time, if this is something any parent would learn, if you're with your child on a day-to-day basis, or you're with your child and you know that you want to be able to communicate with your child, you're going to figure it out. You're going to figure out something that works. And I think that we are so used to thinking that things have to be done one way. And her autism is really showing me that, like, the empathy that I give allows her to be free.
Of course.
Like, she doesn't understand boundaries.
But we're not supposed to.
Right.
Right? Like, and so I think that because earlier we were talking about, like, traumas, right? And, like, those traumas and how they limit our ability to, like, dream, right? And, like, for me, like, the biggest, I think, hurdle for me, because I met my father at his funeral. So it's like never having that example of what to do, what to say, who to be, you know, knowing what balance is, like knowing how to have a balance with work and home and emotion. And like, again, as a male, I was raised by all women. So I was like, doing and then my ex-wife divorced me because of me being emotional, right? And so then you start to compartmentalize your emotions, but then you become this everything to, and for me, I have a boy. So it's like, do I want to raise my son under these constructs of pride to where, like, he doesn't feel comfortable expressing his emotion? He doesn't feel comfortable, like, understanding, like, what emotional intelligence is, right? And so I think, like, the toughest part was watching my son watch me go through the process of growing, right? Like, what some would say, oh, well, this should have happened a long time ago. But when you don't have, like, that proper example of how to be and what to be, you got to learn on your own, and you're going to make mistakes, right? But the beauty of fatherhood, especially consistent fatherhood, is your children love you more after the mistake. You know what I'm saying? Like for them, it's not even a mistake. Like, they've already given you grace for what you probably deem as being like something like, dang, I can't believe I did that, said that, whatever. But it's just like the love that you continue to exhibit is like everything that they glean from.
I agree.
The greatest moment was like having my son watch me go through this process of becoming the best version of myself.
Right. I've always lived in a house full of women. I am the only male in my entire family. I come from 2 sisters. My sister has 3 daughters. Her daughters just had 2 daughters. My grandmother had 2 children. Her son died, so my mother's an only child. So I am the only male in my family born since 1992 in my immediate
Wow.
family.
Wow.
With that being said, there's a lot of pressure that comes with that because I have always been taught how to treat women. So if I failed at that, you know, my family was gonna get on me. But in that comes a lot of expectations from other people that I didn't understand were grounded through the teachings of being around all women. I was raised to, the way I look at women is very differently because of how I was raised. I wasn't raised to see women as objection or I wasn't raised to objectify women. I was raised to see women as strong and strength and things like that. And what it's taught me is that we live in a world where the idea of strength only comes from men. And I did not know that growing up because I was so taught that women were strong and that men were strong, but in my life, they didn't show up. So that was such a different perspective for me to learn as a black man with no guidance. My mom can't teach me how to be a black man. She can't teach me how to be strong as a black man. She can teach me a lot.
She can teach you how to be a gentleman.
She can teach me how to be a gentleman. She can teach me how to treat women. She can teach me, but there was no guidance for me. I had uncles, I had this, but I was always not enough for them. Or the way I acted or the way I carried myself was always, they didn't feel the need to invest in who I was. So I didn't have anyone to teach me how to treat women and I'm not saying that to say that I went on to abuse women or anything like that, but what I say is how many men are like that? How many men do we...
Me, because I grew up with all women as well.
Exactly.
I mean, my grandmother, my mother, my aunt, my sister. Well, I did have my little brother, and so it was tough. I mean, my uncles tried. They tried to be there, but again, like that trauma and that generational curse of like the lack of black male presence, it was so like crippling that it just like, you just see a bunch of young men who are trying to figure it out for themselves, and then they're having kids, and then they don't know.
With no guidance.
No guidance of how to help them figure it out. And so they figure, well, if I leave, then
that'll
I'm
be the
doing
best
the best
thing
thing
for
for them. Nah. And so,
It's
you know,
not.
my mother and them, I was raised in a very emotional household of like
No, I get it.
zero accountability,
I
right?
totally get it.
And you know, if I just show you, you know, my emotions, if I get overly angry about something, then you'll just stop and the conversation is over. And man, when I got married, it destroyed my marriage because I was able to compartmentalize that from my other relationships because we didn't live together. You know what I'm saying? But the moment that I got married and I'm living with this woman, I'm like, man, who is more emotional? Me or my ex-wife? You know what I'm saying? And so it put me in a space to where like I had to go through therapy to understand how to manage my emotions.
As a man.
As a man, and how to be emotionally intelligent as a man.
Because again, we don't have fathers.
Exactly.
And we don't have uncles who know these things. And because we don't have teachers who teaches us these things, we only know emotional intelligence by women.
From a female perspective.
And that's cool for them.
But for us.
But it's not always great for us.
It never is. Because
you can't think with emotions as a man.
And when you're processing with a woman in a relationship, someone has to know when to stop. And for me, being emotional made me argumentative.
And wanting to be right.
And wanting to be right.
Because that's what you saw from the women in your life. Yes, that's exactly what it did for me. And I had to learn again. It took me to lose my daughter's mom. And I'm not even talking about before she died. I'm talking
in the relationship. Yeah.
Took for us to break up, for us to go through the motions of being baby daddy, baby mama, the bickering, the back and forth, the pettiness, and then for her to die, for me to get it. I didn't get it when she was here. I was still being the baby daddy who wanted to be hurt. Emotionally, you did me dirty, or you made me feel this. We broke up,
You made
and
me
I'm
feel
emotional
this, yeah.
because of it. I was not focused on the co-parent I was. We weren't together anymore. I paid the bill. I paid what I was supposed to pay. I did those things right.
Which was but it was also an example of you not having it at all, right?
But all I knew was that.
Yeah.
So I didn't know the emotional intelligence of, as a man, you have to set that boundary.
And how much showing up is more valuable than
Then just,
paying up.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So again, when she died, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do it this way. And then I got this baby looking at me like, it's not happening.
Nah,
like that.
bro. Yeah.
You're gonna sit with me, you're gonna feed me, you're gonna do this, you're gonna spend time with me, and so that taught me like, wait, I've been doing this daddy thing all wrong because of the perspective that I've had
Well, skewed.
from being raised around women my
Yeah.
whole life, because when your mama telling you a good man, you're gonna believe her.
Yeah, and we're not saying that anything about women.
Absolutely.
Okay?
I
Please,
wanna be very clear.
What we're saying is that if a dentist went to a heart surgeon to learn how to be a dentist, he would be a terrible dentist, right?
He's still a doctor, though.
He's still a doctor, though, right? And so
And
again,
he's still valued.
so we're saying that in order for that example to manifest to the extent that it needs to, there should be an example of someone that is like us. When I'm with my son, there's certain things that I have to teach him. Like when I was young, like I had to understand, like I'm not supposed to sit on the toilet, but that's what I saw. So as I grew up, it was like, nah, hey, don't do that. You know, don't be sitting. And to my mama and them, it was cute.
I don't need to fold my legs a certain way, not because it makes me this or it makes me that, but there's gonna come a point in my life where that's gonna get uncomfortable.
But again,
But I don't know that because I saw my mom and my sisters, and I grew up in a household that allowed me to be everything who they thought I would, in their own vicarious versions of the men that they didn't have.
And see, I didn't have that. My mom would be like, nah, that ain't what boys do.
And see, that's the thing. The crazy part about it is I had such a tough exterior mother who was like that, but she wasn't like that for me. So I was able to grow up like being free and doing what and that wasn't understood in our community. So when I grew up, I had a lot of identity crises.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand that it was okay to be me and who I came with and all the flamboyance and all of that. I didn't understand that it was okay until I started getting around other guys who started teaching me that there was many different versions of men.
Exactly.
Because I was only used to one version of a man, or two versions of a man, or the man that does this, or the man that, because that's what my mother did. That's what my sister dated by way of seeing what her mother did. You know, it's trauma.
Yeah, it's trauma. It's
So
trauma.
when you don't have enough background and stability to be able to make those decisions on your own, you grow up and you get in your own relationships and you realize, why don't I have any control of this situation?
Well, then you start learning backwards.
Yeah.
Because now you got to process back to learn how you learned that. Where did this come from?
Then you
Why
gotta
do I feel this way?
forgive and do all this other stuff.
And then you
And
gotta
you
go forward.
two relationships in, and you done now broke up and messed up, and now you done derailed, and
Yeah.
and that sucks. But if we had these conversations or
Growing-
these type of
man,
forums
it would
where
make-
people could sit and black men could hear other black men who have perspectives that they're going through, because women have these.
But see, there's a reason why here and Hill are only one letter off,
Yeah.
right? Because again, when we are in a space to be able to hear and listen to each other, it provides its own level of healing. It's so funny, man. I've been divorced 6 years, and my ex-wife would probably not even know who I was.
I feel the same way about my daughter's mom. I feel like she looks down on me and she's so proud of who I've become because she's probably like, I didn't even know you could.
I don't think she's proud of me.
Well, I would only say that about my daughter's mom because at a certain point she understands what I'm doing without her.
Of course.
But if she was here, no, she probably wouldn't be proud. She probably would be like, yeah. But again,
But we don't know. We don't know.
Again, I think for me, it's just I've accepted that I still have so much more to learn about myself as a man, and the journey that I'm on to become the best man that I want to become for myself is so worth it now. Because now I'm understanding, like, I've been operating in an energy that I wasn't allowed to be the best man who I needed to be because I wasn't raised to be that. And I'm not gonna sit and blame my mother or the women in my family. I go so hard for the women in my family because that level of strength that I've watched my grandmother go through, my mother, my family, like that, there's such a strength in a black woman that you can't talk about. It's weird. You can't just, you can talk about it, but you will never be able to really amass what it is. So it is what it is, and I'll never take that away. But I wish we understood the power in a black man. I wish we understood the power in a black father.
From that example.
From the grandfather level.
From that example.
From the papa level. We don't have the papas. We don't have the dads. Everybody, it's always this level. Yeah. It's always the 30s and 40s.
Well, now it's us having kids.
Exactly.
Being fathers and trying to process being fathers without having them, which is a whole nother conversation.
We don't have nobody that's 64 looking at somebody that's 20 and being able to say, I was you.
Yeah.
And being able to really sit and hear him at a 20-year-old level because age also makes us think we're better than people. So until we get all of that figured out, we got a lot of work.
And then it also makes it hard for me as a 22-year-old that has never had a pawpaw or a father or a grandpa to even trust this outside source.
Because I've been conditioned to not trust men. I've grown up my entire life not trusting men because I didn't have it in my life, and the men that were in my life were horrible examples. And because they were horrible examples, all it taught me was to stay on my toes.
And to not be the horrible example.
Yep. But if I don't know any examples, I'm still going to wind up being some type of example I don't want to be.
Exactly.
So it's all a pendulum effect of trial and error. And I always tell people I love that women have resources. I love that. I love that black women are starting to become the face of therapy and empowerment and things like that. But I can't wait for black men to get there.
Exactly.
I can't wait. I would love to have a black male therapist.
Well, I am very, very vocal about how beneficial mental health, just my mental health journey has been for me, how big a therapist has been for me, how my therapist has helped me not only forgive those who hurt me, but to forgive my own self-sabotage.
My therapist teaches me to forgive myself so much more than the average human can. My therapist teaches me that I hated myself.
It's so funny, man. My therapist says to me, she asked me, and this is like our normal practice, are you a good father? And I'm like, and at first I was like, I don't know. And she was like, well, what does your son say? I'm like, well, he says I'm the best father in the world. She says, well, how are you not willing to believe an active participant? Right. Like, this dude is the person who has the only, like, perspective of this, right? And so for him to say that you are, how don't you believe it, right? And so, again, like, because you're not looking for it, it's gonna happen. Because your daughter's gonna tell you how amazing you are, how amazing you have been, how amazing you're gonna be. My son has Down syndrome.
Right.
So when we go places, teachers are in awe of his ability to just understand the magnitude of the moment.
Right.
Like, something's happening, I need to chill and be quiet, right? Like, okay, I'm here, Dad, what do you need from me? Oh, this is what you need from me. A child's ability to be able to process the magnitude of the moment, right? Again, it's that level of a connection that can't be defined. You know what I mean?
Right.
It can't be defined. You talked about forgiveness, but I think that forgetting has always been looked at as something negative, like you never forget. But I think that this, us as fathers, and how we show up for our children is the beauty of not forgetting, right?
Because we weren't shown up.
Exactly. So I don't ever want my son to feel the way that I felt.
Like, I don't even because I work a lot. So I do have to drop my daughter off with her grandparents who are retired. And, with her having autism, I can't find a daycare for her that will satisfy her being autistic. It's also difficult because she's so smart, and they don't want me to continue to keep putting her in preschool because she's already advanced out of that at this point. But they also don't want to put her in kindergarten because with her delays, they want to make sure she's on track before. So I get it. I understand. But that still also gives me another year and a half until she'll be able to go to full-time school like she needs to. With that being said, she's at her grandparents while I work. And when I have to drop her off, she always cries. And she's always sad. And it makes me sad because I'm like, if only you knew that I don't want to do this at all.
Of course.
But I've had to learn that my daughter is going to understand the sacrifice that I made in these moments one day. She's going to be old enough to see that her lifestyle is a product of what it is because of these sacrifices that I made when I knew that I needed to make them.
Those are the accolades.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Those are the
so
accolades.
That's what I live for. I don't
accolades.
live for someone outside of us to tell me about my parents. As long as when I go pick up my daughter, she's excited to see me. As long as when I drop her off, she's
however she feels. It's that consistency.
It's that.
Yeah,
as long as she understands that I am her daddy and that I am always going to be the person who is there for her, I will never ever stop.
As difficult as the journey is also as beautiful, right? It's just up to you to determine what you're going to focus on.
You have your own, like you said, what you choose to focus, it's your journey. So I can focus on the negative side of parenting and single parenting. And I could be sad that, oh my God, I don't have someone to do her hair. And I could be sad about the mommy-daughter moments that she's about to miss out on. And this, I could be. I could be. And I have every damn right to be.
But you're gonna, but you're gonna be like those.
Exactly.
You're gonna be like that, and it's okay.
But I think for me, the transparency of it is learning that in it being okay, it's also okay to be happy.
Of course.
I think people do not understand that in grief you can be happy. A lot of people think that, oh, you have to have like this version of you that lives vicariously through a person that's no longer here. And it's a lot of mental things. And I'm here to tell people that it's not like that. You are going to figure it out for you.
Exactly. Listen, grief is subjective.
Very much.
You are going to cry. You're going to laugh. You're going to want to like hug somebody. Like you're going to go through your phases and go through your phases. Like whatever that means to you, go through your phase. That's what we're saying, right? Especially as black males. Like we gotta quit living based on like this perception of this false strength that we're supposed to have. Like we just have to be emotionless in order to be logical, and that's not realistic.
It's not healthy. It's not safe. Especially for me as a black man with a daughter, I have to teach her how she's supposed to be treated.
Yeah, and loved. Yeah.
So you're not going to ever make me feel negative for having the mental understanding of allowing myself to be emotional when I need to be for her, but also having a level of things not bothering me, things being unfazed, because I've accepted a level of inner peace that doesn't allow me to be disrupted by things that I know are meant to disrupt me.
Of course, but whether you show it or not,
right?
She's gonna feel it.
Yeah.
She's gonna feel it no matter if you could try to hide it, but she feels it because again, that connectivity of a parent to a child is, man, the moment that they do that skin to skin, it's like
If I don't show up for my child, who will? My daughter didn't ask to be here, and she already lost a parent. So for me, I don't really see a purpose of living if I can't provide for my seed, my child that was brought into this earth by my doing, you know? And I'm at a point in life where I don't even like look at, you know, you go through the trauma of like not having your own parents or your own this or that, and you have to forgive them. And I've done all of that. I've done all of the forgiveness, and I've done all of, but I think it's taught me that in forgiveness comes the grace of understanding that you won't be like that. And you can't be like that because you understand the trauma of it all.
Of course.
I understand that being absent in my daughter's life means that she may grow up and feel how I felt or feel in moments that are uncontrollable. Why would I do that to her? I grew up in a household where my mother did drugs, but my mother was very adamant that I was going to learn. She didn't care if she was high to the sky, but I came home and did my homework every day. I came home and read 2 to 3 books every day as a first grader. I was reading chapter books because I had to. I was doing my multiplication tables at 6, 7 years old because I had to.
And this is what sucks, right? This is the beautiful, this is like the beautiful failure of like black male trauma of growing up in the inner city, because my mother was on drugs as well, right? And it's like, there are these things, these lessons that were supposed to be given, but it's like they're fighting through their own traumas, right? And their own unanswered questions, their own unresolved issues, and hurt people.
And you start to learn their stories.
Exactly, and you start to forgive them because you realize like, oh my God, like you were only hurting me because you were hurt. And you didn't even realize that you were hurting. You actually, it's so funny, man, the older that I get, the more that I'm appreciative of my mother for not allowing us to see her at her worst.
Yeah.
Right? Like whenever she would go away, she would be gone for months at a time. And it was like, in that moment of like, dang, I wish my mother was here. But it was like, now as a father who always wants to show up for their son as their best, I'm appreciative to my mother. My son, when I graduated with my bachelor's from ASU, we got the graduation, and my son just started crying. Now, mind you, my father died when I was 12 years old. I met him at his funeral.
All right.
I had my son doesn't know his granddad. My son is crying at graduation, and he looks at me, and I'm like, what's wrong? Like, why are you crying? He looked at me, he was like, your father told me to tell you that he's sorry.
Oh.
He wasn't ready, and so he left because he wasn't ready, but he's proud of you. And you're a great father because you were a great son.
Oh.
And so in that moment, I forgave a father that I never had an opportunity to hear an apology from, to know, to have a conversation with, to understand his traumas, right? But again, love is so strong that when you're willing to give it unconditionally, it will heal all of those unconditional traumas.
Everyone's like, you're just so happy. How are you this? It's like, it's love. It's grace, it's mercy, it's understanding that I was put on earth for a reason. I was put on earth to help. I was put on earth to teach. I was put on earth to motivate. But I was not put on earth to focus and grieve the rest of my life. And if that's something that you don't understand by way of seeing me cry or break down emotionally and lose myself, then you'll never understand it, because grief is so much more than just that.
Exactly. But sometimes people just want to see you do it to give them a reason to do it.
Exactly.
Right? Sometimes people don't want to see your strength because it makes them okay to live in their weakness.
And it gives them purpose to feel like, oh, well, he's grieving, and I'm going through it, so I can do it just like, and I don't want to be that person. I'm never going to be a person that uses my life as a blueprint to teach people to be lazy or to teach people to not get up and put their best foot forward. Yes, you're going to go through some tough stuff in life, and you're going to cry, you're going to be emotional, but we all have cards that we get dealt. Again, my cards are me being a single father of a black daughter who has autism and dealing with grief. Those are my cards. But that doesn't mean my hand is weary. That doesn't mean that my hand is weak. That doesn't mean that my hand is not something that I can't handle. What it means is that I get up and I handle life with those obstacles, and I don't look at them as obstacles. I don't make them obstacles in my life. My daughter's not an obstacle. She's not something I have to overcome. You know what I mean? And so I'm starting to teach myself it's perspective. If I look at life differently and I'm like, oh, okay, my daughter is the best part of me. My daughter is the reason why I wake up every morning. But then outside of that, I'm the reason why I wake up every morning.
Exactly.
If I don't pull that out of myself, I
for
can't
you,
be who I need to be for her.
And
so
everything that you are for yourself is a reflection of everything that you are for her.
So the single parent comes in easily when I am who I need to be for myself, because she is an extension of me. I don't even like to call myself a single father. I just like to call myself a parent. Because I feel like a lot of these things are labels to enable us.
Well, I feel like for us, we take well, for me, I'll speak for myself, right? I take so much pride in it because growing up, it was such a stigma on our community to not, man, I was just watching Instagram, and this black comedian, it was the worst joke ever, but he was like, he had the caption up, you know, when a white father comes home, and he's black, but he walks home with this wig in, and it's like, Dad, you're home, hey, honey. And then the scene goes, and then it's like when a black father comes home and the door never opens. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, wow, like, you're really continuing this narrative, because I can show you a thread right now of black fathers.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Me and my home, I have about 12, 15 homeboys. All of my friends are amazing fathers. I could not be a friend of a deadbeat dad.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, again, when I look at like how this society has painted this fictitious picture of consistent black fathers, like now I take pride in being a single black father.
Like I take pride in being a single black father, absolutely. I think for me the pride also just comes in being a father, and knowing that as a single black father, my purpose is to just be the best father that I need to be.
Exactly.
I think a lot of times people live under the labels and not the actual work.
Exactly.
So I don't label myself as a single black father, because at the end of the day, that's not what my life's goal is to be.
Of course.
My life's goal is to be a father, or be the best father that I can be. And because I happen to be a single black father, that's just life.
Exactly. And I was about to say, and really, it don't really matter what color we are.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, when I look
so
at it,
many fathers are needed.
But when I look at how we show up for our son and for your daughter, right, regardless of the color or the race, we show up like a lot of white fathers may not, a lot of Hispanic fathers may not.
We just show up.
We just show up.
And so we don't expect anything. And I guess that's where I was getting at as well, is just more so being okay with understanding that as a father, you're going to have a lot of things against you. That's just, we live in a society where they don't think we exist. And unfortunately, we just have to continue to be the narrative that is. Being a father has become the purest joy for me.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things to where everything I do is now for my daughter's future and my future, and for the idea that I'm building stability for when I'm no longer here. Who's going to help her when I'm not here? Who's going to benefit her? And I don't look at it as a bad thing. I look at it as...
you took the Y off of yours and made it ours.
Exactly. And so now I look at life and I tell even like my family, like, I don't have time for a lot of things anymore. I don't have time for things that don't serve me like they used to, because I know that my daughter is my main priority. But I know that I still have allowed myself to live. There's a life that is outside of my daughter that I absolutely am okay with living.
But you have to live it.
But you have
to live. You have to put yourself.
If you don't understand that you deserve time outside of being a parent,
you have to.
You will envy that, and then
you
will
miss
start
it.
to envy your child because of it. I haven't always had me and her maternal family are not the best of friends. We're not the best of, but I've learned that you have to utilize your resources.
And you have to take, I don't want to say advantage,
No,
but you have
no,
to allow,
say it. You have to take advantage of your resources.
You have to allow those who want to be a
Thank
part
you.
of the situation to be a part of, because my family is in LA. So it's like, I literally get to work an hour early. My shift starts at 8. I get to work at 7, just to be able to leave at 8:45 to take my son to school. I use my lunch to go pick him up from school.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, I don't, like you said, I don't wear this badge of honor of being a single parent on my shoulder because it's hard and I don't want to have to do it. I wish I had like somebody.
I think that's one of with the grief of it all. That's probably where it comes in the most for me is wanting, especially when my daughter's being difficult, especially when she's having a rough day or a rough night, and I just want her mother's help. Her mother has such a way with her that I'm still learning. Her mother has such a gentleness. She's a woman. She has such a way of just being able to grab her, and my baby would just stop. She had such a way of doing that that I'm still learning. I think for me, I was so scared of not being as good as her mother. And I had to teach myself,
it's not a competition.
it's not a competition. You were never going to be as good as her mother. Women have intuitions and things that we just don't have. And that's okay. I'm not in no space to compete with the woman or compete with anyone. I just have to be the best father that I need to be. But that came with time. When you have so many things that you feel are against you during grief, you don't get to do anything but process. Like, you know, just background, I didn't get to go to her funeral. Me and my daughter didn't get to go. There's so many like background things that just really
that you're still processing.
To have to forgive people and still work with people when you don't trust them mentally, but you know that they love your child. And you know that this is her family. And like you have to learn how to forgive because you need the resources, because you still want to chase your dream.
I think trust has two folds, right? Because I can trust you on the surface, or I can trust you with my depth, right? But when you look at what our children mean to us, they're our depth. As those things start to evolve, right? And whatever
heavy on the evolve.
It
has to evolve.
It has to.
The mindset has to evolve.
But that's the beauty of this child, right? Because again, they didn't ask to be here, but they also have these people
who love
them, that love them.
And they may not love each other.
But the beauty of that person being in the middle of it, they can be the conduit of love that those outside parties need, right? To again have those resolves that don't always go spoken.
I've had to tell people that just because she died, that doesn't mean that I wasn't chasing my dreams.
Of course.
I still have aspirations to be a chef. I still have aspirations to be a motivation speaker. I still have aspirations to do content and do creative. And then I also still have aspirations to be the best father that I could be. And a lot of people look at that as being selfish. A lot. It's so crazy. And that's when I started to like really isolate myself from a lot of things, because a lot of people took me processing my grief as me wanting to be seen. And the craziest part about that,
grief don't have a specific process.
It doesn't. And people,
you go out every night because you grieve, and sometimes you stay home every day because you're grieving.
And people think that at a certain point, I owed them an explanation of the way that I grieved and the way that I processed things. People weren't invested no longer into the work that I had put in to be these things that I had put on hold. They were just invested into the emotional aspect of what they thought I was doing. So that's when I had to kind of get a very kind of like, I don't care demeanor and go back to these things, because I couldn't just leave. I owe it to my daughter to show her that you can do anything through anything.
You owe it to
myself.
You owe it to yourself. You owe it to the world. You owe it to somebody who's processing the way that you process, that doesn't have your level of strength. You know what I'm saying?
And people who see me in them. And so that's the thing. Like I knew that there was something bigger than me. And that's why I was telling you, like, I now have an understanding that my grief is bigger than me, and it's not just I've processed it. Like I'm at terms with it. I've accepted it. I know my healing journey is still linear. It's not going to stop anytime soon.
No.
But I also am understanding that where I'm at in my journey allows me to be who I need to be to help others.
The biggest thing that my son taught me is like, you're a superhero, right? Like we're all a superhero. But it's like if you don't live in a nightmare, your dream won't really be a dream. The manifestation of it won't be the same. You had to endure that nightmare in order for that dream to manifest into something real. It's like so much like, dang, I wish I didn't have to go through this. But the more you go through it, and the stronger that you become, you're like, dang, this was necessary in order for me to really be able to use the voice in which I have to the magnitude in which I'm supposed to be using it.
Because you don't get to skip the steps.
Yeah.
Like, I always tell people, one of the toughest lessons I've ever learned in life is there's no participation trophies.
Nah,
Like,
not in real life. Nah,
you don't get a trophy for being alive.
not in real life.
You don't get, your trophy is the breath you take. Like that's it. So everything you do beyond that is on you. The biggest thing that I've learned is I can't, in order for me to be the father that I need to be to my daughter, I have to be happy within myself. And that means that I have to do what makes me happy in order to take care of her. I have to still be career driven. I still have to be someone who understands that there is a business and a life personal balance. And I also have to be someone who is understood, who understands that I'm not going to always be liked.
I wanted to be happy for myself. Like, even now as a single father, right? I don't expect for someone to love me. I love myself. So it's like the moment that you don't come into my space with a reflection of already how I love myself, I'm not gonna give you any more of my energy, right?
And I don't care to.
Exactly. And so for me, it's like those are greater lessons that we teach our kids that are higher than just like, oh, I'm this and I'm that. Like, nah, you have to set these boundaries for the people around you who don't have your best interest at heart. And sometimes it takes for you to see their worst interest to know that they don't have your best interest at heart. You know what I'm saying?
And there's a lot of people who won't understand your journey because they don't get your story. And that's okay. It's not meant. The people who get it, and the people who don't, they won't. I think the biggest journey that I've learned is that if I continue to keep going, I'm only going to get better. That's just it. Like,
no, ain't no if. You gon' continue to keep
right,
going.
but I think a lot of people think that when you, I've learned that being stagnant is not a thing for me anymore. I've learned what being stagnant looks like for me. And again, I always go back. I think that's why I have so much protection over my heart when it comes to losing someone, because it took for that moment for me to understand where my life was heading. I was truly at a rock bottom and didn't even realize it. You know, you go through moments and you think like you said, this may not even be the best part of your life, or this might even be the people.
The worst part, yeah, it might not even be the worst part, yeah.
What it is that it taught me that I was not present with myself. I was living in this realm where I was a version of myself that I didn't like.
Again, man, we talked about grief, right? And grief is like an onion. Like it literally peels back layers of who you are. Man, my grandmother passed 6 years ago. Her birthday is literally 10 days from today. So it's like every time I graduate, it's either around the day that she passed or around her birthday. Right? And it's just like, how can I not think about this person who unctioned me to go back to school, right? And so in that moment of me feeling like, dang, I'm making this woman proud as I'm making myself proud. You was like, dang, I want to just hug you and tell, like, ooh, I want to tell you about this journey. But again, as crazy as this may seem, if you just have the conversation like we having a conversation, who's to say that they can't feel the energy of what's being stated, right? And
But
so
that's not crazy to me at all because that's how I do. Like I tell people, I often have, case in point, maybe a week or two ago, May is a tough month for me, obviously. It's Mother's Day. My daughter's mom died Memorial Day weekend. So just to have that back to back is just ridiculous to me. I'm not in a space where I want to really celebrate Mother's Day this year because I don't know, I'm just not there yet. So as May comes in, I'm like getting all of these reminders of just the times that we've spent. I'm looking on my Facebook and I'm seeing memories of when we announced that we were pregnant with our daughter and just really intense moments. So I just started talking, like, you know, hey, I miss you. And I don't, but I have these conversations all the time like that, where it's an open dialogue and I'm just in my own moment, whether I'm driving or I'm in my home or I understand, again, like you said, what is to say that they won't give me the talking in my head that I don't need. And I have an understanding of higher power that I don't think a lot of people have. I grew up traumatized. I can go 9,000 ways to the left about my trauma and what I've experienced in life, but no one's taught me how to deal with my trauma quite like my child.
No.
Because my child doesn't know that. My child has no idea this trauma. What we're talking about.
But it's funny how, regardless of your traumas, right, there's this example of love that you give that you weren't even taught, right? Like you weren't taught this example of love, but you give it so easily, so freely. It wasn't like something had
because it's within, and it didn't come from what you experienced. It came what your impact, what you're giving to the world.
But sometimes it's without too.
Yeah.
Right? And so again, like as an educator, right, I see a lot of students that are like broken because they haven't had an opportunity to process, right? Like, because again, grief, I think that also people always assume that grief is connected to death. And it ain't always connected to death, it's connected to absence. Yeah, the grief is connected to absence, right?
Yeah.
And so when you talk about like how the absence of something or someone could cause this void or this hole in your life or in your emotions, right? But then again, like when you talk about, I tell people all the time, I don't get caught up in religion because that's another way to separate people from my perspective.
Yeah,
so I tell people, I don't care what you believe in, whether it's God, Allah, Buddha, yourself, whatever you believe,
understanding inside.
Exactly, and whatever you believe in should show you that it also believes in you. At some point of your life and your journey, whatever you believe in should show you that it believes in you as well, right? And once it shows you that it believes in you, you can either believe it or not, right? And start to live in that faith of what it's shown. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, right? So when you believe in something that's bigger than what you think it could be, it is really that. Doctor said my son wouldn't walk, talk, would never play sports, would never read, would never write. And it was just like, my dude had 2 binocular holes in his heart. There was no reason for me to believe that my son would be able to do anything that they said that he would. This is a doctor. You went to school for this. So for me, it would have been easy to believe you. But my faith was like, nah, I don't believe that. And so now to see my son manifesting into things that I didn't even see based on just what I was willing to believe in, right, is far greater than that. And that's why I say, like, you know, when we talk about like the difficulty of grief, the difficulty of trauma, if you are willing to go through your own process and have the confidence in yourself to say, you know what, I'm going to deal with what comes to me. Because at this point, nobody else is going to help you, right? You have to be willing to help yourself and make that decision. That level of faith has so many different outcomes that you don't even have any understanding of. Like you just making that decision to say, you know what, I'm going to show up for my daughter. That in itself provides ramifications you have no idea of. That's going to blow your mind.
Right.
Just because you was willing to believe in something that was real to you and nobody else.
I agree.
And I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
And
I'm proud of you.
I appreciate it. And I see, like, I think when we were talking earlier, like we were talking about like those moments of like what we have to offer as opposed to what we don't. Mm-hmm. And like for me, like I've been a parent for 13 years, and someone could easily say, well, I've only been a parent for 4, so I have nothing to give you. But it's like in this moment of us conversing, I've learned so much. And like even in this moment, I've forgiven myself for those things that I didn't know, right? Mm-hmm. And like giving myself grace in this moment. And I've forgiven the father that I was of my 4-year-old son and my 5-year-old son, you know, to understand that everything that I was and those things that I didn't know have made me to be the best father for him as a 13-year-old, right? And I had to make those mistakes in order to learn from them now. So, you know, for me, like, I want to say thank you for like your willingness to express those things, because again, I feel like if we just had this type of communication, like this communicative space to be like, you are not alone, you are not crazy, right. You know what I'm saying? Like you're not depressed, right. You know, you are strong. Like if we had the opportunity to just remind each other that everything that we've done is actually, we've done it. Everything we've tried to do, we've done it. To be able to be conscious to focus on that next level of growth, I feel like, man, we'll all be in a better place. So I'm appreciative for this time and this space. So
thank you. I appreciate you as well, just because it's very rare to see a person who understands on a higher spectrum that things are going to be okay. Mm-hmm. Often as black men, you know, we don't have, I don't even say mentors, but we just don't have other black men that we can look at.
Most of us don't have fathers, so that's the biggest mentor.
We don't have fathers, so, and not having fathers, and I'm not gonna say all of us don't have fathers, but mm-hmm. a good majority of us mm-hmm. don't have fathers. And in not having fathers, we are taught that once we get a certain age, we should be strong enough to get out there. Mm-hmm. And I've always hated that idea because I never had anyone to give me perspective on parenting. Mm-hmm. And I've made a lot of bumps in the road mm-hmm. because of it, but I think these conversations and this conversation specifically is really helpful for people like me mm-hmm. who are not going to reach out and say, I need help. And mm-hmm. I think this conversation is just really affirming that mm-hmm. for me. Mm-hmm. And so I just appreciate your perspective. I appreciate you giving me a lot of insight and just telling, honestly, just to break it down, just telling me it's gonna be okay. Yeah. Like I think it's just, it's not an emotional thing for mm-hmm. me. It's not a long drawn out thing mm-hmm. for me. I think it's just more so like, it's nice to just be able to breathe and be like, you know what, I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah, yeah, you are.
And even to tell you, like, you're gonna be okay. Yeah. Like, you know, like even when you were saying like how this is a tough month for you, I think that's crazy how that resonated with me. And exactly. Us both having tough months and never meeting before.
Yeah. Having children with a special need.
Right.
Having mother on drugs. Right. Not knowing their father. Like again, I feel like if we were open to just saying what's up to each other as opposed to like having this like mad dog stare down moment with each other, we have so many more similarities than we do differences.
But our generations, we are one generation from learning that black men can have emotions.
Yeah.
So you can do with that what you will. Mm-hmm. We are the generation mm-hmm. that are teaching mm-hmm. black men that it's okay to cry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's okay to court women. It's okay mm-hmm. to date. It's okay mm-hmm. to these seasonings, these recipes are being lost in
it's okay to walk on the street side. It's okay to open the door, like those things. Like
it's okay to work a job and not idolize the life that you have to have billions and millions of dollars at a certain age or you haven't made it.
Yeah.
We literally live in a world where our black men have so much trauma on them because they don't believe that they can make it.
Yeah.
So again, these conversations are very necessary.
Very needed. Very needed. Very
I
needed.
can't stress it enough. I just am very thankful, and the opportunities, I can't wait for more, to be honest.
Exactly. Man, appreciate it.